The power of 300 words. How many English words do you know? 1,000? 5,000? Maybe even 10,000? It sounds impressive, doesn't it? But pause for a moment. When was the last time you had a real conversation in English? Did you use all those words you learned? Or did most of them stay silent, sleeping somewhere in your memory? Here's the truth. You can know 10,000 words and still struggle to speak for 1 full minute, not because you lack intelligence, but because the real power of language isn't in what you know. It's in what you can activate. We often think, the more I know, the better I'll speak. But language doesn't work like a warehouse where knowledge is stored and locked away. It works like a flow, alive only when it moves through you. When you use it, when you breathe it, when you share it. Fluency isn't built from the size of your vocabulary. It's built from your ability to turn simple words into natural expression. That's the heart of the power of 300 words. 300 small yet powerful bricks, each one a note, together forming the melody of your communication. Because mastery isn't about how much you collect, but how deeply you connect with what you already have. Today, you'll see why the true power of English doesn't live in thousands of words written in your notebook, but in the 300 words you dare to use every single day. Sometimes to speak better, you don't need more information. You just need to switch on what's been asleep inside you all this time. And to understand why that switch matters, let's step into a story. The story of a girl who knew thousands of words, yet lost the sound of her own voice. Part 2. Kita and the Voice That Fell Asleep. Kita started learning English when she was 12. She loved every sound of the language, the rhythm in English songs, the warmth in movie dialogues, the feeling of a new world opening inside her. Each night, she sat by her small wooden desk, a cup of tea beside her, and carefully wrote down new words. 20 words a day, 600 a month. She didn't miss a single day. Her notebooks filled up one by one. The first, the second, the third. The pages smelled like ink and dreams. Each word she wrote felt like a promise to her future self. 8 years passed. Thousands of words slept quietly between the thin lines of her notebooks. They looked beautiful, as if knowledge itself had a shape. Then one quiet afternoon, in a small cafe, Kita sat across from a foreign guest. He smiled kindly and asked, "Where are you from?" A question so simple that even a beginner could answer. But in that moment, her mind went completely blank. Like a curtain suddenly closing on a bright stage. All those words she had memorized floated away like birds set free. She smiled awkwardly, mumbled a few broken sounds, and fell silent. Her heart raced. Her palms were sweaty. Inside her head, English words spun around like a storm. But none of them stopped long enough to become speech. That night she went home and opened her old notebooks. Page after page, the words stared back at her. Achievement, beautiful, possibility. She knew their meanings. She knew their grammar, but somehow she couldn't bring them to life. For the first time she whispered to herself, Why do I know so many words and still can't speak? That question stayed with her for years. It followed her like a quiet shadow. She tried everything: flashcards, mobile apps, grammar books, listening to endless videos before sleep. But the harder she studied, the further she felt from fluency. The more she memorized, the quicker she forgot. And every time she tried to speak, fear whispered louder than words. Fear of mistakes, fear of sounding stupid, fear of not being enough. But the truth was, Kita didn't lack intelligence. She didn't lack effort. She only lacked activation. She was trying to store language instead of living in it. Like someone collecting seashells. Beautiful, colorful, but empty inside. Language isn't a treasure to be hidden away. It's a current, a living river that grows stronger only when it flows. Kita never really failed. She just hadn't been shown how to awaken the power hidden inside her 300 most familiar words. And maybe you've been like her too. You understand everything you hear, you know the rules. Yet when it's your turn to speak, something freezes inside. You tell yourself you're not ready, that you need more words, more time, more practice. But maybe the problem isn't what you lack. Maybe it's what you haven't switched on yet. Because all of us, at some point, have been Kita, sitting in a sea of vocabulary, yet trapped in silence. So before you blame yourself, take a deep breath and ask, what if the problem isn't learning, but activating what I already know? That's where our journey begins. To uncover the real power of 300 words and to bring your sleeping voice back to life. Part 3. Decoding the power of 300 words. So, what exactly is the power of 300 words? It's not a magic method, not a secret hack or a hidden formula. It's something much simpler, a truth most learners overlook. We were taught how to collect, not how to activate. Day after day, we write down new words, their meanings, their structures. Every new word feels like a small victory, a step closer to fluency. But the more we collect, the heavier our minds become. Our heads get full of words, while our mouths stay silent. Because language isn't a storage system. It's a living skill, a muscle that only grows when it moves. If you don't use it, it fades. You can know 10,000 words, but if you never use them, your brain quietly files them away into a locked drawer called memory. That's where the power truly begins. When you stop hoarding words and start activating them in real life. Think of yourself as a chef. A great chef doesn't need every ingredient in the world. He only needs a few essentials: salt, pepper, herbs, oil, water, fire. But through creativity and practice, he can turn those basics into hundreds of unique dishes. Now imagine another person who collects spices from every country, fills his shelves with rare ingredients, but never cooks. He doesn't become a chef. He becomes a collector of flavors he's never actually tasted. Learning English works the same way. Vocabulary becomes powerful only when you cook it, through experience, through mistakes, through real conversations. That's what the power of 300 words is about. It's not about the number itself. It's about building a daily habit of bringing language to life. Because your 300 most basic words aren't just tools for communication. They're the backbone of fluency, the skeleton of your reflexes. They're what allow you to build sentences, tell stories, and express what's truly inside you. A fluent speaker isn't someone who knows the most words. It's someone who plays with what they already have, who combines, rearranges, and transforms the familiar into something alive and new. The power of 300 words doesn't come to limit you. It comes to free you from the pressure of knowing everything. Because freedom in language isn't about the number of words you own, but the natural flow that happens when you use them without fear. Once you understand this, something changes inside. Conversations start to feel lighter. You stop counting mistakes. You stop fearing silence. And slowly you begin to trust that even 300 words can carry your voice to the world. So pause for a moment. Put down your long vocabulary list. Look at the words you already know and use them. Play with them. Stretch them. Let them breathe. Because right after this, we'll look at real numbers, real science, and real evidence. Proof that with only 300 core words, you can unlock more than half of everyday English communication. That's the switch, from learning English to living it. Part 4. The science behind the power of 300 words. When you first hear the number 300, it sounds almost ridiculous. 300 words? That can't be enough. We laugh, we doubt, because our minds are trained to believe that fluency must come from more. But then, the numbers tell a different story, a story that silences even the skeptics. After all the emotion, after all the reflection, let's look at the truth through science. Linguists have studied thousands of hours of real conversations between native speakers, and the results are astonishing. An average English speaker in daily life, in casual talk, in ordinary moments, uses only about 1,000 to 2,500 words frequently. Yes, they know tens of thousands more, but most of those words sleep quietly in the background. They are what researchers call passive vocabulary, understood when heard, but rarely spoken. And here's the part that surprises everyone. The 300 most common English words make up almost 65% of all daily conversations. Just 300 words, covering 2/3 of what people say every day. Think about that for a second. When you order food, greet a friend, ask for directions, or share how you feel. You don't need fancy words like sustainability, metaphor, or philosophy. You rely on simple ones. Go, want, need, good, bad, time, today, feel. These are the foundation bricks of language. Small, familiar, yet powerful enough to build the whole house of communication. Research from Oxford University confirms this truth. If you truly master just 300 core words, you can already understand about 70% of ordinary conversations, not by memorizing thousands of terms, but by using a few words flexibly, confidently, and creatively. Because fluency isn't about size. It's about mobility, how freely your words move through real life. The most fluent speakers aren't those with the biggest vocabulary. They are the ones who can bend, stretch, and reimagine simple words to fit different moments and meanings. They don't try to sound smart. They try to connect, to be clear, to be real. Think about a child, 5 years old, maybe 6. It speaks with just a few hundred words, yet communicates freely, fearlessly. It doesn't wait to be perfect. It simply uses what it has. That's the real power of 300 words, not a limit, a launch pad, a reminder that you don't need to know more to feel confident. You just need to awaken what you already have. And when that realization sinks in, something changes. Fluency stops feeling heavy. Learning stops feeling endless. You begin to see that fluency doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from using what you already carry every single day. So now, let's go deeper. Let's explore the hidden rhythm of true fluency, where these 300 words don't just express meaning, but activate your confidence every time you speak. Part 5. The secret of fluency, the power of 300 words. So far, we've seen the science. We've seen how 300 words can carry almost every daily conversation. Now let's return to something simpler, something deeply human, the way a child learns to speak. If you've ever watched a child learn language, you've seen the miracle. They don't have dictionaries. They don't use flashcards. They don't take grammar notes. Each day they listen, imitate, repeat. They laugh when they get it wrong. They listen again. They adjust, and they keep going. No fear, no pressure, no perfection. And through that beautiful chaos, language becomes part of their body. Something they move with, not something they memorize. That is the true secret of fluency. It doesn't come from knowing more, but from using simply again and again. The more you try to stuff in, the more you tighten up. The more you try to remember, the more you fear mistakes. But the moment you start using, even just your 300 familiar words, your brain begins to wake up. It reactivates the area of reflex, where language turns from theory into movement, into flow. Fluency isn't a warehouse of facts. It's a mental muscle. And like any muscle, you don't grow it by collecting. You grow it by repetition with awareness. Every sentence you say, every word you hear, every mistake you make, they are all tiny push-ups for your fluency muscle. At first it feels awkward. You stumble, you pause, you forget. But with each repetition, the awkward becomes natural. What once made you anxious becomes automatic. Imagine learning to play the piano. At the beginning, your fingers move slowly, clumsy, unsure. You press the wrong keys, you lose the rhythm. But as you stay with a few basic chords, again and again and again, your hands begin to remember. Your body takes over. And suddenly, sound becomes song. Language works the same way. Your 300 words are your notes, simple but full of potential. Together, they create the music of your own communication. Fluent speakers aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who stop fearing them. Children can speak because they don't chase perfection. They play with language, while adults analyze it to death. So maybe it's time to reverse that. Don't study to remember. Study to use, to touch, to breathe with the language. Speak, even when it's wrong. Repeat, even when it's tiring. Because in every stumble, your brain is quietly building a new path of reflex and flow. Fluency doesn't come from speed. It comes from consistency. A little repetition, a little patience every day. And slowly, you'll see those 300 words are strong enough to unlock the door of fluency you've been knocking on for years. So instead of asking, "Have I learned enough?" start asking, "Have I used enough of what I already know?" Because that's where the transformation begins. Not in the pages you filled, but in the moments you dare to speak. And in the next part, I'll give you something simple, something powerful. A 30-day plan to turn your 300 words into living reflex, into true speaking confidence. Because fluency isn't a dream you chase. It's a rhythm you practice. One word, one breath, one day at a time. Part 6, 30 days to activate the power of 300 words. Understanding alone isn't enough. Real power begins when you act, when the words on paper turn into breath, into sound, into living reflex. So for the next 30 days, treat this as your personal language activation program. No complicated methods, no expensive tools. Just your time, your consistency, and the 300 words you already know. Because fluency isn't built in a day. It's built day by day. Step 1. Stop learning new words. Choose your core 300. Yes, you heard that right. Pause the race of vocabulary collecting. Instead of chasing endless lists, choose the 300 most essential words, the ones you use every day to describe feelings, actions, needs, and life itself. These are your language skeleton, the words that let you speak before you know everything. They are your foundation, the bricks that hold your voice steady. Step 2. Build sentences. Speak out loud. Feel the sound. A single word has no power until emotion and context bring it to life. So don't practice words, practice sentences. Start with simple human lines. I'm happy today. Let's try again. Can you help me? Say them out loud, clearly, slowly. When you speak, you train your brain, your mouth, and your breath together. That's how knowledge turns into activation. Step 3. Repeat with intention every single day. Repetition isn't boring, it's electricity. The current that keeps your language alive. Just 10 minutes a day. 10 sentences, spoken clearly and confidently. Don't learn fast, learn deeply. It's like water dripping on stone. You won't see change at first, but after 30 days, the mark will be visible. Step 4. Track your progress. Feel your strength grow. Here's your 30-day switch plan. Days 1-7, 10 minutes a day. Speak 10 familiar sentences aloud. Days 8-14, answer 3 quick questions. What, when, why, in under 5 seconds. Days 15-30, tell a 60-second story using only your 300 core words. This isn't just speaking practice, it's a full workout for your language muscles. Something you can measure, feel, and celebrate each day. Step 5. Choose quality over quantity. Don't try to learn 50 new words only to forget them by next week. Instead, master 5 words and build 50 different sentences from them. Play with words. Don't fight them. Every time you speak, even with mistakes, you're strengthening your fluency switch, because fluency doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from repeating with feeling, with awareness, with purpose. And if you stay consistent for 30 days, those 300 words will no longer be just a number. They'll become energy in your voice, confidence in your speech, and freedom in your communication. So now, instead of asking, "Have I learned enough?" ask yourself, "Have I used enough of what I already know?" Because this journey isn't about perfection. It's about activation. If you're ready, then let's begin. Step into the next chapter, the 30-day challenge, where your 300 words turn into living rhythm, flowing through every sentence you speak, and where English stops being something you study and becomes something you live. Part 7, 30-Day Challenge. The journey to activate the power of 300 words. Now it's time. Time to switch on the power of your own language. No more theory, no more notebooks. This is 30 days of real action, your living practice. This is your challenge. Simple, clear, and deeply effective. The 30-Day Challenge. 300 words only. For the next 30 days, you'll use only your 300 most familiar words to speak, listen, write, and think in English. No adding, no collecting, only activating. 10 minutes a day, 10 sentences spoken out loud, and 1 honest sentence about how you feel today. That's all it takes to begin the transformation. Week 1. Get comfortable. Switch on the flow. Start small. Speak 10 sentences each day. Don't rush. Don't aim for speed. Aim for clarity, rhythm, and emotion. When you hear your own voice in English, something powerful happens in the brain. It begins to believe, yes, I can actually speak. That moment of belief is where power begins. You're no longer learning, you're becoming. Week 2. Build reflex. Speak before you think. Now, raise the challenge. Train your response time. Answer 3 quick questions in less than 5 seconds. What happened? When did it start? Why do you like it? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be alive. Because reflex is the living pulse of language. It doesn't come from memory. It comes from repetition, with breath, with rhythm, with trust. When your mouth moves faster than your fear, fluency begins to flow. Weeks 3 to 4. Real conversations, real stories. By now, the 300 words are awake inside you. You've stopped studying them. You're living with them. Now it's time to speak your truth. Each day, tell a short story. Just 60 seconds long. A small memory, a moment of joy, a day you felt sad or proud or changed. Don't fear mistakes. Those tiny errors are proof that you're alive in the language. Because in this phase, you're no longer learning English. You're using it. You're transforming it. You're becoming fluent through life itself. These 30 days aren't just a challenge. They're a commitment, a promise you make to yourself. A promise that says, I'll stop waiting to be perfect, and start speaking to become better. Every word you say is a drop of confidence. Every day you show up is one more brick in your fluency wall. Remember this, you're not missing vocabulary. You're missing activation. You don't need to know more. You need to go deeper. And these 300 words are the first sparks that will unlock your true fluency. After 30 days, you won't need anyone to tell you that you're good at English. You'll hear it in your own voice. Because fluency doesn't come from lessons you take. It comes from the journey you live through. And when these 30 days are over, come back here. Because I'll tell you a story. The story of someone who used these same 300 words to change her entire life. A story not only about language, but about awakening the power that was always within. Part 8. Kita's Transformation and Your New Beginning. 30 days later, Kita sat again in that small cafe. Same corner, same quiet light. But something inside her had changed. When someone asked, "Where are you from?" her voice didn't freeze this time. It flowed. Soft, unsure, but alive. She smiled. Her words weren't perfect, but they were hers. And that was enough. Because fluency isn't about knowing every word. It's about daring to use the ones you already have. Those 300 words became her rhythm, her small victories, the music of a voice reawakened. Maybe you're where she once was, full of words, but afraid to speak. If so, this is your moment, not tomorrow, not someday, today. Pick your 300 words, speak them. Repeat them. Let them breathe through you. Language isn't something you learn. It's something you live. Don't aim for perfect. Aim for presence. Because the world doesn't need perfect English. It needs your voice. You don't need permission to be fluent. You just need to begin. And once you do, you'll realize. Fluency was never far away. It's been waiting quietly inside your own voice. That is the real power of 300 words.